Hey, welcome back. Today we are going to go ahead and finish up this model piece of the project, and then in the future video we'll get into UVs, creating our UVs, and putting textures on, things like that, as I said in our first video. If you missed the first video, it is right here at my YouTube channel, Putting on the Fritz 3D Visualization. Go ahead and check it out. I also have some other Maya projects on there, and I kind of talked about that in the last video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the things that we want to go ahead and do. And let me go ahead and pop my head out of the way. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the roof line first, okay? And the reason why I want to bring this up is this is something you need to know when we use an object that we mirror. So first off, when I click on it, you see that the point is all the way over here, right? It is off center. And if we wanted to be able to move this on center, rotate it, and things like that, we need to fix that. So what we can do is we can go up here to modify with the roof selected. We can put the center point back in the center. It's going to be kind of below everything there because of the way it's set up. The other thing we want to do is, and I'll demonstrate why. So I'm going to go ahead and go into vertices. So if I select this vertice, you can see that it leaves out and it points this direction, right? Now if I select the vertices on the opposite side, it also faces that same direction, but it's facing down at the angle that this roof is facing from over here. So it makes it kind of difficult for us to be able to adjust these vertices at this point. So what we need to do is, in object mode, we're going to go ahead and select the roof. We're going to go up to Edit, we're going to go to Delete by Type, History, and we're also then going to go to Modify, and we're going to freeze transformations. Okay, and you'll see when I do that, now it's got a different orientation. And if I double click on this, that is for the object orientation, and it's also for the world orientation. There's really no difference now because of the way the model's set up. But that is going to make a difference when we go in to do our vertices. So, for example, if I wanted to modify my roof line on this house, and I am in World, and I want to go to Object, okay, you can see that it doesn't really change anything there. So what we're going to want to do is we're actually going to want to go to Component, and when I select Component, now we've got it so that I can move it along these lines here and just follow right along. So if I wanted to modify my roof line at the front of my house, I can just grab those vertices and push it back a little bit. Okay, this is kind of what I'm going to end up getting here with the front of the house. Now, if I wanted to do something similar to the backyard, to the back of the house, now if I select it, the component is facing the right direction, and I can go ahead and push that back without any issues. Now, I'm thinking that I might want to actually put a patio out here, but if we put this roof line down at the same for the rest of the house, it's going to end up kind of messing things up. It's going to come all the way down here and look kind of funny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Face. I'm going to select the face right here. I'm going to do Control E to extrude it. I'm going to hit W to be able to control it with my Move tool. And I'm going to pull this out so that it's going to come out like this. And you're thinking, it looked kind of like it did before. And you're right, it did. I'm going to get a little bit of a patio here. But what I can also do is now I can bend it at that point right there, give me more of a subtle downward bend to produce this slightly down angled roof line, but produce a little bit larger area back in the back so we could have like a covered patio. Okay, so that's some things about mirroring objects and vertices, deleting history. Now the next thing I do want to cover again, last thing with the house, is now that we've modified this roof line, it's not actually centered anymore. So what we need to do is go back into Modify. We want to center the pivot line. And while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and edit, delete by type, history. And I'm going to go ahead and freeze the transformations one more time on that. Okay. Now that we've got all that done, I'm going to hide this part of the project. First, I'm going to double click over here and name P Cube 3. I'm going to call this my roof. Okay. And while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and name P Cube 1 my floor. And P Cube 2 my walls. Okay, and I'm going to save everything, Control S. I'm going to save my project. I'm going to select my roof, Control H. Control H will hide it. You'll see here in my outliner, it's still here. My roof is right there, but it's grayed out. That means it's no longer visible. If you notice the cameras that are currently in our scene, so our perspective, top, front, and side cameras, they're also grayed out. The advantage is that you can't see them anymore, and you also can't accidentally select them unless you intentionally select it here in the hierarchy or the outliner. And you can't actually see it still though. You'd have to do Control. So if you do Control Shift H, it brings it back, okay? So Control H hides it. Now if you can't find it and your house is, you just can't find your roof, it just doesn't want to come back using those quick keys, because it only brings back the last hidden object. You can hide a few things. You may run into an issue with that. You can come up here to Display, go to Show, and then you can just do Show All. You can also show last hidden. You can select it over here, and you can also do Show Selection. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward from there. I think the first thing we're going to want to do is maybe make some window frames and door frames that we can put into place, and then create a door and put in some glass for our windows. So let's go ahead and get the door frame, or window frames and door frames going first. And we could select this, add some more geometry, and extrude these around the model. We could do that. But we're going to do something a little bit different that will save us some time for window frames on the inside and the outside of the house. We can knock them out both at the same time. And when we do UVs, we could treat them with different paint, or we could just leave them with the same paint. So, all right, what we're going to do is I'm going to make a cube. Select my cube up here. I'm going to pull it forward, and I'm going to start with a window frame. Make this big one right here. Okay. I'm going to center it into there. We'll play around with this width in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and R on my keyboard. I'm going to scale this up just a little bit so it kind of fills that space. Scale it out this way so it fills that space. If you're having trouble visualizing, you can always hit 4 on your keyboard, get your wireframe so you can see your opening of your hole for your window, as well as where everything's kind of sitting. I'm going to go ahead and kind of do that real quick. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put in some edge loops to kind of shape out what our window frame is going to look like, and then we're going to end up doing some bridging. And once we build this first one, then we can just duplicate it and create a bunch of them and configure them the way we need to. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. If you have trouble visualizing it in the wireframe, you can always hit 6 on your keyboard or 5 on your keyboard to go back to your shader modes. So I'm going to go ahead and go to object mode, and I'm going to hold shift, right click, and I'm going to insert my edge loops, and I'm going to put it here. And again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. Alright, so now I have kind of the general outline for my window frame. I'm going to hit Q to quit that tool, right click, go to face. I'm going to select the center piece of that window frame. I'm going to delete it. And if it's not perfectly set up on your window, that's okay, because we're going to go ahead and modify it by using the vertices here in a minute anyway. So let's see how it's looking. Okay, it's not looking too bad. So let's go ahead and if it's hard to see your edges or you're having problems visualizing it, you can pull the window out, or you can hide everything else again. Select just the window frame. And the way to do that is Control 1. Oops, Control 1 a second time, because actually got to be in the object mode. Select it. Control 1. There we go. So you can hide everything all at once. Don't forget our roof is hidden, so we can always go back into display to pull that back out if we need to. I'm going to go back into my edge, and this time I'm going to double click like this on both of those lines to highlight the frame, And I'm going to put bridge in there to bridge it. Make sure it came out the way I want it to. Okay. Now I'm going to hit Control 1 again. And you can see that my walls are kind of sticking up a little bit through my window frame, and that's okay, because we're going to adjust this here real quick. The way to do that is we need to make this a little thicker. So I'm going to go right click, go to my vertices, hit 4 on my keyboard to kind of visualize what I'm doing a little bit. And if it's easier, you can also go to a different view, kind of zoom in on it. You can see that the wall is slightly above the window frame. So I need to make this piece a little thicker. So what I want to do is I'm going to marquee select and just select those vertices right there that are on the top. Okay, and I want to select all 4 of them, so the ones on both the inside and the outside. I'm going to hit W on my keyboard and just drag it up a little bit, and that's going to thicken my area around my window frame. Okay, and I need to do the same thing on this side over here. So I'm going to select, do a marquee select, select these just like that. Okay, and again I'm going to pull these in just a little bit. Do this on all of them just to be on the safe side, because it looks like they're a little close. Alright. So now, if I go back into my shader mode, I can see that my window frame is in there. It's a little off center. I'm going to go ahead and right click, go to my object mode. Pull it in just a little bit. That gives us our first window frame. Okay, so now what we can do is we can go ahead and duplicate it. So first let's go ahead and name this. We're just going to go ahead and call this window frame. Window frame. And after this, each subsequent one will be numbered. So we don't have to keep renaming these. Do it on the first one. And we can go ahead and Control D to duplicate it, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it over. And using that same method where we modified the outside with the vertices, we're going to go ahead and modify these outsides. We shouldn't need to modify the height, because the height should line up with all of the windows, since we didn't put in multiple heights for these, because again we're just taking a simple approach to this model. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and go to vertices. I'm going to hit 4 on my keyboard again, and right here I can see that I need to select all of these. I'm going to select them all these ones on the outside here. I'm going to drag it over and line it up so that the window cut is lined up exactly in the middle there. Do the same thing on this side. Now I'm going to hover my mouse up in here. It sticks on my keyboard so I can see the results of what's happening here, but it's still wireframe down here. And that gives me another window frame. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of my model. I'm going to pause this video so you can do that. And I'm also going to kind of hit you with a little bit of a challenge here. This process can also be applied to the door, right? But we don't necessarily want the piece hanging out down here, so we need to modify this a little bit to fit into the frame for our door here and the outer frame for our sliding glass door, if you have a sliding glass door in the back as well. So I'm going to let you kind of try to see if you can come up with that solution. I will show you how to do it at the when I come back before I finish out. So let's go ahead and pause for now, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm back briefly because now I got to the next piece here, and I need to go around 90 degrees to the sides, right? You can also move these to the back. You know how to do that, I'm sure. But for 90 degrees, it's simple. Just Control D, duplicate it, pull it out to where you want it to go. And on our y-axis, I'm not sure why we have, oh, here in the rotate, there we go. In our rotate for our y-axis, we can hit 90, rotate it 90 degrees, and now you can just get that lined up however you want it. and move forward from there. I'm going to go ahead and pause again, and I'll come back once mine are completed. Okay, welcome back. So now I've got 9 window frames in my house. I haven't done the door frames yet. I told you I'd show you how to do that when we got back. But one of the things I wanted to make sure we fixed before we moved on from here is all of our geometry for the, I guess our gizmos is a better term, for our window frames. So I'm going to go back to object mode, okay? And when I do that, you can see that now it's straight again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a selection here in my outliner for all my window frames. I'm going to go up to edit. I'm going to delete by type history. I'm going to go ahead and modify. I'm going to freeze my transformations. And then I'm going to go ahead and also modify and center my pivots. So now my pivots for each of these should be in the center of each of the windows. And everything should work the way it's supposed to. For future use if we want to rotate them or whatever we need to do. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and now use one of these window frames to make a door frame. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it, and now I'm going to go ahead and name it. So I'm going to get rid of that 9. I'm just going to go ahead and call this door frame. Okay, so that's going to be my door frame. I'm going to pull it off of here, set it into my door here, just like everything else. And we can go ahead and also use this lower piece as a threshold for our door. The height of it should be correct already because it's lined up with our windows. We didn't really modify that either. So let's go ahead and get the position of it correct. Okay. And that's going to be all of this right here. I'll go ahead and get my vertices. I'm going to pull this out so that it lines up center on the door. Something like that. I'm going to go ahead and pull these down and pull this down so that what I end up with is like a slight threshold at the base of my door, and so that it doesn't really stick too far up above my floor, but just enough so I can tell that there's a break between the two for my material. So when I go put my flooring material in, it'll be different than my material for my wall here, okay, or for my door. And that's really all there is to it. It's just kind of taking an approach that this is going to be our threshold, making sure that it sticks down far enough. We have this little bit of a gap that kind of sticks down. And we could also, if we wanted to, we could extend this down by grabbing these last 4, making it line up with the base of the ground or the base of the house if we wanted to. That's certainly an approach that we could do. We could put a patio type thing out here that would cover this up completely. So if I extruded this part of the floor out to make like a and we might do that. In fact, we might actually make like a little porch in front of the house. So, all right, with that, let's go ahead and do the same thing for this back one back here. Again, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the first door, so I don't have to rename it. I'm going to go ahead and Control D for duplicate. Pull it back here. And in my side view here, I can get it lined up for my door. Opening like that. Let's see, there it is right there. Okay. And notice that in the front view, you really can't see the model too well because it's right behind the other model, and if that you ran into that with your windows, that could be something that you have. But as we start to move it off to the side, now it pops out and we can see it. We can get it lined up with our walls. There. Okay, and I'm going to leave it at that same height right there, just above the floor. Okay, so now we've got that set up. And we're probably going to want to make frames for our actual sliding glass door, okay? And we'll get into that here shortly. Let's go ahead and first just put in a simple door, and then we'll use that material to put in our windows as well, or that geometry to put in our windows. But first, let's select our two doors. Go ahead and delete their history. Freeze their transformations, and then let's go ahead and recenter their pivot points. Okay. All right, so now we've got a beginning of that. Let's go ahead and get the door in. We're going to use yet another cube. And this mesh is not only going to be for our door, but it's also going to be used for our windows. I'm going to skinny this up just a little bit so it looks more like a door, about the thickness of the walls maybe. And now I'm going to go ahead and just pull it up. And good enough. One of the things we could do is we could also put an inner frame inside of here to kind of give that door a latching point. And that would also cover up the gap so that it looked like the door is doing what it's supposed to do. It's not exactly the full size of our frame, but there is clearly a place where it closes against. So that's one of the things for the door. So we're going to go ahead and call this door. And maybe we want to be specific, so maybe front. Okay. Now hit W. We're going to go ahead and Control D to duplicate that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to fill in this section here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it up just a little bit. Now it doesn't matter if this overlaps, okay, because this is going to be actually hidden inside our door frame, inside our window frame, and the wall. You just want to make sure that it doesn't extrude out, or extend out, sorry, not extrude, extend out past the width of the wall like we see here happening and here. So you may need to make that door a little more narrow. You can also narrow the glass up a little bit. Don't want to go so far that you turn the material inside out. That would not be good. All right, so let's go ahead and now shape this to the right height. Once we kind of have it all set up, simple, the same process as before. I'm just going to go ahead and select these vertices. And I'm going to make sure that it's kind of here in the center of my window frame. Once this one, the width of it's set up, and we're good. Okay, so now I've got it centered inside of my window frame, so we should be good for it completely filling the gap. Now that's going to be the same process we're going to do for all the windows. So yet again, I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. I'm going to finish my windows up and let you finish yours up, and then I'll come back and we'll take go ahead and take on this sliding glass door back here and maybe put in a simple doorknob. Okay, welcome back. So now we should have all of our windows set up. Okay, so like before, we're going to go ahead and make our modification, or I guess fix our modifications, so that what we've actually done is clear up all of our history and freeze our transformations if you haven't done that already. So go ahead and also hopefully you remember to rename these so that they're windows and not doors, even though we use that door material. All right, so with them all selected, again, we're going to go up to Edit, Delete by Type, History. We're going to go to Modify. We're going to freeze transformations. We're also going to center the pivots so that they're in the right spots. And then the next thing we want to do is, and actually, let me go ahead and undo what I just did, because I wanted to do something first before we froze the transformations. All right, so on the front transformations, one of the things we wanted to do is I want to make sure that my glass thickness is consistent. And one of the things I found for my house, with how thick everything is with the walls and everything, that setting the Z scale on my scale Z axis to 0.15 and making sure that everything took that, it did. So that is one way you can change the scale in math, by selecting everything and do that. And then let's go back in, and now I'm going to select everything, all my windows, and go to, again, Edit, because I'm going to have to do it again. Edit, Delete by Type, History. Modify, freeze transformations. And I will also, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to make sure the center pivots are where they're supposed to be. Alright, so now everything looks like they're set up right. And what that's done is, once we freeze transformations, you notice it sets all of our translates back to 0, or rotates to 0, and our scale back to 1. So that's why we needed to do that change in the thickness of the glass material before we froze the transformations. And that way it made them all consistent, especially now that they're set to a Maya scale of 1. Okay, so that's got us started. So the next thing we want to do is finish out this last door right here. If you put a sliding glass door in, you can kind of follow along with this real quick. It is pretty much the same process that we followed with the window frames and the windows. Basically, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to borrow one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D, and I'm going to call this door sliding. Good enough. All right, so now I've got that. I'm going to pull that over here, and I'm going to put this. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow this out so that I can put two of these in occupying the same space. So I'm going to hit R. I'm going to shrink this down so that it's thinner, more like a thinner glass door frame. I'm going to pull this down a little bit so it's kind of exposed. Right there. And put up right against the edge there. Good job. All right. So one thing I want to do is I want to be able to figure out where the middle of this door frame is so that I can set these up. So I'm going to select the outer door frame. I'm going to go ahead and hold the shift button, right click. I'm going to select the option box for my insert edge loop tool. I'm going to go to that multi-edge again, put one in there, and I'm going to put an edge loop in the middle of this upper one. I'm going to use that as my guide. We're going to come back later and delete that because we don't need it, but for a temporary use of a guide. So now I can go back to this. Make sure you quit the edge loop tool, hit Q to quit, select object mode. There we go. Now I'm going to use this as a guide. So if I go into the 4 mode, you can see there is that little line right there for me. I'm going to select vertices. W, drag it over so that it kind of lines up right in the middle, because we do want these doors to overlap just a little bit. And probably put it something like that. That way the back line is lined up with the center of that window there. Select these down here. Right there. Just double check. A little bit of a gap at the bottom, that's going to be okay. Alright, so that's the start of one window frame. Let's see how this looks. Go to object mode, Control D to duplicate it, drag the other one over, and I guessed wrong. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and delete that one. Try this again. We actually want these vertices. I keep doing it. So we want to put this so that these are on. That's right. That's fine. So let's go ahead and get this lined up so that let's see, we'll put it kind of like that. All right. Let's try this again. Duplicate it. There we go. I think that's going to work. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and get some glass and put it in there. D, we're going to name this door window. Hopefully that makes sense. Over here, same process as before, so I'm going to pause so you don't have to sit here watching me do it. I'll let you do it on your own. Make sure you get everything lined up with your door frame, and you may need to thin that glass out just a little bit so it fits better too. So go ahead and do that while I do mine. Okay, welcome back. So we're almost done here. I think there's going to be one more video, just a little kind of a short kind of finish it up modeling video. I don't want to make these all too long, and basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and make it so the glass is transparent. So we're going to add a material to it real quick, and then after that we'll wrap this video up and then do some kind of detail modeling in the next video. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and select all of our windows, and by holding the shift button you can select those, and then hold the control button and select the additional two, because these are all going to be see-through. And what we're going to do is we're going to hover in our perspective view, right click and hold. We're going to go down and we're going to assign a new material. And when we do that, this little window should pop up. We're going to select Arnold, and we're going to find an AI standard surface. Okay. The reason why we're going to use Arnold is because we're going to end up using the Arnold renderer in our inside of Maya to do this. And this will work better if we use the Arnold material. Okay, also I just realized one thing that we didn't finish doing was fixing those positions of those windows, but we'll come back to those in a minute. Okay, so with that done, now we've got our AI standard surface right here, okay? And that is what we just brought in. It's an Arnold standard surface. We're going to go ahead and give this a name. We're going to call this M underscore, and we'll just call this glass windows. That way now, in case we put glass in for whatever reason for something else, we know there's a difference between it. And then we also have this output node. So this is an input node and an output node. So what I want to do is I'm going to copy this and select my output node right down here at the bottom, and I'm going to Control V, and now I've named them both so I know what these are. And we'll get into that when we get into the materials later on. Now, to make it so that these are transparent, pretty simple. I showed that in a previous video, but we can come down here to transmission under our main material here. So we have base, specular, transmission, okay? And right here where it says weight, right now it's at 0. If we slide it to the right and get up towards around 0.8, 0.9, our glass becomes transparent and we can see through it. So that material becomes transparent. Okay, so now we've added a material. We'll take a look at that later on in the following videos. And we have completed our main structure of our house. So let's go ahead and bring our roof back. So we can try selecting it here and Control Shift H, and that should bring it back. If it does not come back, you can select it here, or you can go up here to Display, go to Show, select all, everything will come back in. Now if you do that, all the cameras will come back too, so you may want to select them and hide them. You can also try Display, Show, and do Last Hidden. Okay? And that is going to be it for this video. In the next video, we'll go ahead and do a couple little details on our house and kind of wrap this thing up for the modeling process of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap this up and talk a little bit about being able to go back and find some of my past videos. You can take a look at those here. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like what you saw, putting on the Fritz 3D visualization. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Leave a comment, like this video if you liked what you saw. If you have any questions, again, leave a comment, get back to me, let me know how things are going, if you have any issues, and I'd like to hear from you. So I will talk to you next time.